Welcome to Black Swan Revelations. My name is Shane, and in today's video, I'm going to be doing something a little bit different, and that is I'm going to share with you one of my favorite Psalms, and that is Psalm 119. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to spend a little time reading the entire Psalm to you and then sharing my thoughts as we go. And I don't know how long this video will be, but hopefully you get something out of it. And then tonight, remember to come back to this channel tonight. Basically, every Sunday night we have what's called Rev 5. So I have 5 people on, so 4 panelists plus myself. And what we do is we discuss a topic and we go around the table. Tonight we're going to be talking about what happens after the rapture. Like, what will the world look like after the church gets raptured away for 7 years? What will happen? So that's going to be an interesting discussion. And as a lot of us are passionate about the rapture, we're passionate about the end times. We spend a lot of time diving into the book of Revelation, and we also spend time reading the book of Daniel quite a bit. But today, I'm going to dive into Psalm 119. So tradition has it that King David taught this psalm to his son Solomon. So this is one of the reasons why you see that the Hebrew alphabet in this particular psalm. So we're going to go through each letter of the Hebrew alphabet and the verses that pertain to each one of those letters. So the first letter, of course, is Aleph. Blessed are the undefiled in the way, who walk in the law of the Lord. Very similar to Psalm 1. Blessed are they that keep his testimonies, and that seek him with the whole heart. They also do no iniquity. They walk in his ways. Thou hast commanded us to keep thy precepts diligently. Oh, that my ways were directed to keep thy statutes. Then shall I not be ashamed, when I have respect unto all thy commandments. I will praise thee with uprightness of heart, when I shall have learned thy righteous judgments. I will keep thy statutes. Oh, forsake me not utterly. So that's Aleph. Beth, which is a little bit shorter, the second letter of the Hebrew alphabet. Wherewithal shall a young man cleanse his way? By taking heed thereto according to thy word. With my whole heart have I sought thee. O let me not wander from thy commandments. Thy word have I hid in mine heart, that I might not sin against thee. Blessed art thou, O Lord. Teach me thy statutes. With my lips have I declared all the judgments of thy mouth. I have rejoiced in the way of thy testimonies as much as in all riches. I will meditate in thy precepts, and have respect unto thy ways. I will delight myself in thy statutes. I will not forget thy word. It's interesting. This kind of reminded me, I could picture King David um, teaching this psalm to Solomon. And I remember when I was younger with my 3 children. At this time, they were probably, I don't know, very young, very young. Talking 3 to 7 kind of thing. I have 3 kids. So, but I used to read a little Bible book, a children's Bible, to them. And I remember having to work all day long and then coming home and hanging out with the kids and building forts for them and all this kind of stuff. And then at night, it was my job to read them a Bible story. So mom would always say, okay, kids, dad's going to read you a Bible story. Get all ready. And so we'd go into the bedroom, and we'd usually pick a room. It'd either be in the girls' room, because the 2 girls slept together, or it'd be in my son's room. So we would just pick a spot, and then I would read. And what I would do with some of their crazy books that they had, sometimes I would misread the book and I would make something up. And they would go, Dad, that's not what it says, or whatever. And they'd all get the giggles or whatever, right? So I would do stuff like that. And then I remember sometimes where, in hindsight, like today is Father's Day. So if you're a father, congrats. That's awesome. My son in law is a father, has been a father now for a year. So this is basically last year, obviously celebrated Father's Day because the baby would have been just born a couple days before Father's Day. But this year, like my grandson just had his birthday on Friday, so we got to celebrate that. And then at 1 years old, the kids get really fun. Before that, yeah, they're doing the military crawl along the floor. That's kind of cool and all this kind of stuff, but it's not really anything special, right? Like, you can still push them down and stuff. You're trying to make them crawl and all this kind of stuff. But when they're walking, it's kind of cool. And I said to my grandson, I said, once you get the hand gestures, like, because both hands are still above his head when he's walking around for balance. I'm like, once you put your hands down to the side, you have made it. You've graduated. Because can you imagine if I walked into a room with my hands above my shoulders, walking into every room like that? It's kind of weird, right? So he's at that point where he's walking all the time now, all the time. And it's amazing, but you start getting deja vu because when I would read a Bible story to him, it reminded me of when I did that with my kids. And there are times where I would be exhausted reading a story, and I'm like, oh man, I just want to go to bed, and I have to read the Bible story to the kids, and I would yawn, and my kids would sometimes put their hands over my mouth and like, no yawning, because I was bored. I was bored stiff reading the Bible every night to my kids. I'm like, oh man, I just want to go watch a movie or whatever. But it's so fleeting. Time is so fleeting now. I'm thankful for all those times that I spent reading with the kids and building forts, and whenever mom would go off to worship practice or whatever, um, the kids would break out into a cheer. Why? Because I had a bunch of games that I made up, and I'd put them all on a piece of paper, and we'd put them into a hat. So what we would do, we would have games like Duck Duck Goose, Merry-Go-Round, Frozen Tag, Big Bad Wolf, which is a game that I invented, and it's a pretty scary game, pretty terrifying game. Basically, you have a wolf that is actually a prison guard, and what you would do is you go and capture the kids and you bring them into prison because you wanted to eat them the next day. And so, as the prisoner, as the wolf, I would pretend to fall asleep, and the other two kids would have to rescue this kid. And what I would do is, as they approach, I would pretend to kind of wake up out of my sleep, but then I would turn over and they would scream and run away because it would make them so nervous that the big bad wolf was going to wake up. Or sometimes I would look at them and they'd scream and they'd free the prisoner and they'd run, right? So that was kind of our game. And they'd invite their friends over and they'd play as well. So we play all kinds of crazy games, right? But that's what I remember doing with my kids. And really, when you think about it, as time progressed, they weren't clingy to other people. So when other adults would show up at our house, our kids basically ignored them. Not rudely, but they were so full of their dad playing with them all week long that when we had company, they would never bug the adults. They'd never go up to the adults and say, "Can you play with me?" And they'd show them their dolls or whatever. They'd never do that. Why? Because they had daddy time, and their dad would play with them so much that they couldn't wait for company to leave so that we can play. So that's kind of the thing that we had with my three kids. So this kind of reminds me of that. King Solomon is reading, or King David is reading to Solomon, his son, and it's kind of interesting. It makes you reflect a little bit. All right, Gimel. Deal bountifully with thy servant, that I may live and keep thy word. Open thou mine eyes, that I may behold wondrous things of thy law. I am a stranger in the earth. Hide not thy commandments from me. My soul breaketh for the longing that it hath unto thy judgments at all times. Thou hast rebuked the proud that are cursed, which do err from thy commandments. Remove from me reproach and contempt, for I have kept thy testimonies. Princes also did sit and speak against me, but thy servant did meditate in thy statutes. Thy testimonies are my delight and my counselors. Interesting, right? So that's Gimel. Daleth, the fourth letter of the Hebrew alphabet. My soul cleaveth unto dust, unto the dust. Quicken thou me according to thy word. I have declared my ways, and thou heardest me. Teach me thy statutes. Can you imagine memorizing this whole psalm, especially as a kid? Pretty powerful. Make me to understand the way of thy precepts. So shall I talk of thy wondrous works. My soul melteth for the heaviness. Strengthen thou me according to thy word. Remove from me the way of lying, and grant me thy law graciously. I have chosen the way of truth. Thy judgments have I laid before me. I have stuck unto thy testimonies. O Lord, put me not to shame. I will run the way of thy commandments when thou shalt enlarge my heart. What's kind of interesting is I also think about my mom. I don't know if you're watching this right now, Mom, but if you are, I love you. And my mom was quite influential for me. Like, she actually brought me to the Lord. And I remember ever since I can remember, she was always taking me to church, always as a kid, even when I didn't like it. And it got to a point where I think it was in grade 7 where I started going a little bit more regularly. And we would actually go to a junior high school on Sunday. So we'd actually take a bus from the church. And what church did we go to? I think it was it an Anglican church back then? I can't remember. Full gospel. I think it was a full gospel church. And we would get bused to a school, which was like 5-10 minutes away. And that's where I would have my Sunday school class. Then we would come back for church. And coincidentally, the next year I went to that school, Peter Pond. It's kind of interesting, right? So, but yeah, I have had great memories of my mom coming to my room at night, asking me if I have any questions about the Lord or anything. I can ask my mom anything, anything. She was an open book. And I appreciated those times, just quiet times, come downstairs and we'd share, and she'd pray over me, pray with me, and that kind of stuff. So that was kind of cool. So it's just interesting that when you come across a psalm like this and you memorize it and you start remembering the verses, like, teach me, help me to remember your commandments, and don't let me turn away from this. It's very powerful stuff. So, hey, this is the fifth one. Teach me, O Lord, the way of thy statutes, and I shall keep it unto the end. Give me understanding, and I shall keep thy law. Yea, I shall observe it with my whole heart. Make me to go into the path of thy commandments, for therein do I delight. Incline mine heart unto thy testimony, and not to covetousness. Turn thou away mine eyes from beholding vanity, and quicken thou me in thy way. Establish thy word unto thy servant who is devoted to thy fear. Turn my reproach, which I fear, for thy judgments are good. Behold, I have longed after thy precepts. Quicken me in thy righteousness. I remember my stepdad, bless his heart, My mom got remarried when I was 10 years old. And by this time, she had four kids, and a fifth one was on the way. So imagine a young man, probably 2 years, 3 years younger than my mom. So he would have been in his 20s, mid 20s, late 20s, with four kids instantaneously. Four kids, all 10 years old and under. So, like an instant family. And I remember at first, it was a little bit, we had a little bit of a difficult time because, you have a dad that's no longer around in another town, but now you have a new dad posing as your dad because he married your mom. So there was always this dynamic going on, and I always wanted to honor him, but it was tough because you're caught between two places. And I remember one time that kind of helped seal the deal a little bit was when I was at a playground and I got bullied by a kid. The kid pushed me down. Typical. I was playing in a playground at Keano College, I think the place was, and I think this was when my mom was dating this guy, and so they were still dating. So I would have been about 8 years old, and I got pushed down by this kid. He was, I think he was a grade five or grade six or so. Big kid, huge kid, grade five, 10 years old. Pushed me down, and he wouldn't allow me to play in the sandbox, basically. So I'm like, oh man. So I went home crying, crying to my mom, and my dad's like, what's the effing problem? And it's like, well, Shane is not allowed to play in the playground because of some bully. And wow, my stepdad was like, what? Because he's a little rough around the edges. So he goes out with me. He's like, come with me. So we both walk out to the playground. He's like, you pushing my son down? And the guy's like, um, mm, no, he could play wherever he wants. Like, hey, I don't want to ever see you touching him again. That's my son. And then he walked away. And I was like, wow, that was pretty cool. They weren't even married yet. And he treated me like his son. So that stuck with me, that little story. I felt like proud. I was like, wow, I have a man that stands up for me to this bully kind of thing. He's like, you touching my son? And back then, you weren't sure if a dad was going to spank another kid. You just didn't know back then, right? So it's kind of interesting, right? But that kind of stuck out to me. And I think I was probably one of the worst kids. I had attention deficit disorder. I was hyper. If you look up Wikipedia, ADD, all that stuff, I think I was the guy that actually invented it. If I'm being honest, I had so much energy. I loved chocolate bars, loved it, and just my eyes would roll in my head if I ever had a chocolate bar or a bottle of pop or something. I was just like, I was like the Flash. And there are so many times where my mom would try and put me to bed, and I'd be crying. I'd be like, I wanna watch the $6 million man. And my mom would be like, enough, go to sleep, shut up. And then my stepdad, same thing, enough, this is madness. Because he's trying to watch Star Trek or something on TV. And I'm like, it was like a chant, I wanna watch $6 million man. Came on, I think it was Tuesday nights at 8 o'clock. And then there was also Happy Days and Gilligan's Island. Like I was a TV guy. I watched a lot of TV. They used to call us latchkey kids because basically both parents were working, and then they'd come home at 5 o'clock. But from basically 3:30 to 5, I would go home. I'd have to go to the play school, grab my brother, who's younger than me, grab him from play school, and then bring him home, and then we'd just watch TV or whatever, Flintstones, whatever was on, Spider-Man, all that kind of stuff. And then we would wait until my mom would get home from college, and then our dad would come home as well. So interesting, right? Okay, you're getting a lot about me, about my childhood in this video. But it's Father's Day. It's kind of like a time of reflection. All right. Let thy mercies come also unto me, O Lord, even thy salvation, according to thy word. So shall I have wherewith to answer him that reproacheth me, for I trust in thy word, and take not the word of truth utterly out of my mouth. For I have hoped in thy judgments. So shall I keep thy law continually forever and ever. I will walk at liberty, for I seek thy precepts. I will speak of thy testimonies also before kings, and will not be ashamed. I will delight myself in thy commandments, which I have loved. My hands also will I lift up unto my commandments, which I have loved, and I will meditate in thy statutes. Remember, so this is Zane, remember the word unto thy servant, upon which thou hast caused me to hope. This is my comfort in my affliction, for thy word hath quickeneth me. The proud have had me greatly in derision, yet have I not declined in thy law. I remembered thy judgments of old, O Lord, and have comforted myself. Horror hath taken hold upon me because of the wicked that forsake thy law. Thy statutes have been my songs in the house of my pilgrimage. I have remembered thy name, O Lord, in the night, and have kept thy law. This I had because I kept thy precepts. Interesting, right? And I think about my youngest child, Chastity. How old is she now? Well, she was born in 86. 86? No, that's not right. 2000. When was she born? 96. 96 she was born. My oldest was born in 92. My son was born in 95, and then my youngest was born in 96. And she's kind of special. I'll tell you a quick little story here. I don't know if I'll get through all the Psalm 119, but this is kind of interesting. This gives you a little personality profile of my youngest daughter, so hopefully she's not watching this. I remember one time when she was about 14, she pulled me aside. She's like, Dad, come here for a second. I'm like, what? She's like, I want you to teach me how to drive because I want to take my learner's test, but don't tell my brother and my sister. This is the youngest. I said, wow, that's amazing. Sure, yeah, I'll teach you. So we went into the car to drive it, and this would have been after she got her learners. So she studied hard for the learners, got her learners, and she got it first before her other siblings. And then she asked me if I can teach her how to drive the car for her driver's license. So 2 years later, and I said, "Oh yeah, perfect. I'll do that." So we got into the car. I drove to a remote parking area. I think it was like a cul-de-sac actually. And I got out of the car, and she jumped in the car, and she's sitting there, and she's like, "Okay," and I'm like, "Okay, let's go." Put her in reverse, and she's like, "Ah, where's the reverse?" So I'm like, "Oh, right," because you read the book and everything, but it's different now that you have to drive. So I'm like, "Okay, here's the gear shift. Here's the steering wheel. There's the gas pedal. And you use your right foot for your brake. Don't use your left foot. Just use your right foot." And so we had to start from scratch. So then I took her out, and she didn't allow me to tell anybody that I was teaching her how to drive until the day she got her test. She took her exam. So she took her exam and passed it the first time. Just boom. And then so we came home, and the other siblings are like, "What? You got your driver's license?" So then they're like panic mode. So then they wanted me to teach them how to drive. And my son had to keep going to get his learners because he didn't want to study. He just wanted to just take it. He thought it was easy. So he kept taking it over and over again. And then my oldest daughter studied for it, and I think she failed the first time and then passed. I think maybe she passed the first time. Can't remember. But then, so I would take my son. So after my youngest daughter has her driver's license, cool, passed, awesome, okay. So then I had to teach my son how to drive, and my oldest daughter at pretty much the same time. So I would take the car out, drive my son somewhere to a remote parking lot, and let him drive. And we'd go around the corner pretty fast, and I'm like, slow down. He's like, Dad, I know. And I'm like, a little bit nervous, a little nervous. And then I would get home, and then I would take my oldest daughter, and we'd jump in the car, and we'd drive all over the place. I tell you, if I ever wanted to smoke a cigarette, it was when I was driving with my oldest daughter, because I needed to smoke. I'm sorry, I'm just being honest. I needed to have a smoke. I should have carried a pack of smokes on each arm because she made me so nervous. We would parallel park and end up perpendicular in the person's lawn. Some stranger. We'd be right on their lawn. And I'm like, let's get out of here. Go, 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 go. Get out of here. So yeah, man, I got nervous. I got really nervous at some of the red lights. I'm like, I don't know if we're gonna go or if we're gonna go in reverse. Don't know. So a little bit nerve wracking driving, teaching your kids to drive from scratch when you are the only person that's teaching them everything on how to drive. But it's kind of cool in hindsight because my kids trusted me to teach them how to drive, and my dad taught me how to drive, although he let me drive on the farm. And my dad was kind of weird. It's kind of weird because he used to work on the rigs, so at night he would be really tired, and I'd be about 10 or 12 years old. And so what he would say to me is, I'm going to go sleep in the back, and you're going to drive this truck. And we would go to Lloydminster and all these back roads. And he's like, just here's a cushion. He'd prop me up in a cushion. He'd put sunglasses on me and a cowboy hat so that I would look like a skinny little man. Because remember, I was only like 10 years old, maybe 12. Barreling down the highway, driving a truck like this while my dad slept in the back because he was pretty tired after working on the rigs. And I'm driving down the highway. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? That wouldn't be, you wouldn't be allowed to do that today. But I would drive all over the place for my dad. And then as soon as I got my learners, I grabbed the keys and I'm driving my cousin around. And my stepmom was always mad, always mad. I love her today. But back then, I was a tyrant. I would take the truck at 14 and go driving. I didn't have my driver's license. I would just use the car. And last story. This has nothing to do with my kids, but this is a crazy story because my friend Rodney Frost and myself, we stole his mother's car. And I forget what kind of a car it was. It was like a Buick or something, one of those big Buicks. And we're driving down the road, headed to his house, and we were in the 50 zone, and we're going probably 70 kilometers. So if you think about it, I don't know what that is in miles. If you're an American, what is that, 30 miles? We were going 40 or 50 miles an hour in the 30 zone. So then all of a sudden we saw a cop car pass us, and my friend looks in the rearview mirror and he's like, are the cherries coming on? I didn't know what cherries were. It's like, are the cherries coming on? Yep, he's got the cherries on. And I'm like, what's going on? I look, and sure enough, the cop has his lights on to pull us over, and he's starting to turn around. And I thought my friend Rod was going to pull over. No, he stepped on it. He gunned it to the floor. And we're like, oh! He raced all the way to his house, pulled into his parents' driveway, and we ran into the house like nothing happened. And then we looked out the living room window and we see this cop car go by with lights on, and then and it backed up and then pulled right into our driveway. And we're like, uh-oh, we're in trouble. and the cop rang the doorbell. My friend Rod goes to the door. I go with him, and the cop's like, "Were you driving this car?" And my friend Rod goes, "Nope, nope. I was here watching TV with my friend. We weren't driving. That's my mother's car. Why would I drive that car? I'm too young to drive." The cop's looking at him and was like, "I felt the engine. It was hot. I know it was you. Don't ever let me catch you driving that car again." And he left. And he left. That's what we did at like 14. We were tyrants, man. Tyrants. Anyways, that's it for today's video. I hope you got something. Maybe I'll make a part 2 or whatever, but I have to also get ready for tonight, and I also got to go to church. But hope you got a kick out of this. I encourage you to read Psalm 119 to your kids, and I encourage you to spend time with your kids, make adventures with your kids, because they grow up so fast. They grow up so fast, and they have busy lives as well. And I'm thankful my kids are actually coming over this afternoon. We're gonna have a little mini barbecue. I know it's raining right now, so that's kind of nice. So that'll be fun. They're all bringing over their significant others. So there'll be 6 of them altogether. So 3 kids, 3 boyfriend, girlfriends, and my youngest daughter's husband. So that'll be cool. Plus my wife. So that'll be cool. 8 of us. That's kind of cool. And so that's what we'll be doing after church today. And then obviously I have a live stream tonight at 5 o'clock Mountain Standard Time, I should say. And we have my sister Amy is going to be on. My other sister, Amy Moosefault, adopted sister, if you will. I just adopted her from the YouTube community. So I just consider her my sister. And then also Gary Gates is going to be on as usual. And then also Pete Garcia is coming on tonight as well. So we had a good conversation on the phone this week. And so he's going to be jumping on. I don't know how long he'll be able to stay. But my plan is to just do it for like an hour, make it really packed, really condensed, so that you still have the evening free after that. So join us tonight. Feel free to subscribe to this channel. Click on the notification bell, and then feel free to leave a comment as well if you got something out of this. And again, happy Father's Day, and I'll see you guys in another video. Bye for now.